on my YouTube channel. I didn't even mean to do that. You see? This is what I'm saying. Like, Riverside just does me dirty. It's just it's like, "Okay, you are now live."
Oh
So, I'm
gosh.
like, "Yes, I am now live streaming." That's what I
Um,
meant to do right now. So
I guess I can't play around with that background again.
Nope, you're stuck. I mean, you're not stuck, and you know what I mean? Like, do what you like, really. Like, if you wanna keep playing with it, play with it, but I'm gonna just go ahead and start introducing what we're doing.
Sure.
Happy Sweet Walk Sunday, and welcome to What People Miss.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here with you, Abeo, and, because you saw a post of mine yesterday, and you were like, "We need to talk about this," you know? I had posted, a clip of my last talk where I was talking about achieving joy drive. And at this moment in the speech, I was talking about defining what is emotional abuse. And I was heavily pregnant because, like, I took you through the last 15 years of my life in 8 minutes. So
Wow.
I
Wow.
started out the talk pregnant. Anyway, so that, brought us to this moment where we're talking about self care and knowing your requirements as a woman and as a mother, because that's what I've been talking about in the month of May. So let's talk about first, um, self care in a marriage, right? Because a lot of women, they just lose themselves to their husbands, like I was describing in my talk. And, but you have to gain yourself in a marriage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah. As many women, including myself, I've definitely um, lived a life that you you get caught up in the routine. I call it the routine. You're like, okay, I have to take care of the home. I have to, facilitate if you have children, and before you know it, your care, your self-care has somehow lost its space, and it's not purposefully done. You're just going through, things that you think is routinely for maintaining the home, and then all of a sudden you recognize you're in a space that you're like, wait a second, what about me?
Yeah.
um, and with that being said, you really have to take a step back. And I had to take a step back and really say, okay, I am a person and I love me. So if no one is going to do what is needed for me, I have to do it for myself.
Hmm.
And to some people, that might seem a little selfish. And if you want to put that title on it, but it's not a matter of being selfish. It's a matter of just really recognizing that, you need to take care of yourself just as how you're taking care of everyone else. And there's nothing wrong with that language or that feeling. And it's needed, because if you don't take care of yourself and really love yourself, how could you really love the other parties in your relationship or in your family? And it took a while to recognize that, but when you recognize it and you really live in that space, it's a beautiful space. You become more happier, you become more involved within, your life, and you do better for yourself. And that's what's important. That's
Yeah.
what's important.
I'm hearing like self care helps you to know your requirements, you know?
Right, right. And self-care might be different for everyone. For me, self-care was really taking the time to recognize what's important to me and really following through with that. So one of those things was really feeling a sense of who I am, loving who I am, and recognizing nothing is wrong with who I am, and then really just taking the time to do things that makes me happy, which could be, for me, it's like meditation, doing my nails with a girlfriend, um, taking time to talk to, you know, people that, I could relate to in my community, or taking the time to say, hey, I just want to be still, like just no phone, no media, just still, just be in a space of just, with, stillness.
Mhm.
So, and that did it for me.
Yeah. I also like how you identify that if someone's not going to do this for you, you have to do it for yourself, you know?
Ab- Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
it's like, you know, yes, a husband is to provide and protect, but he's also to love, you know, and to respect you, you know? And if you're not getting those two things, then you get to do it for yourself.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not anyone's responsibility as well. And you have to recognize that it's not someone else's responsibility to provide you self care. That's why it's called self care, right? It's not called, child care
Or
or
baby
husband
care.
care. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, parent care. It's called self care. So it says
Let's
it.
state the
They
obvious.
do. Self
There
care.
you have it.
Yeah. So like and it shows up in so many different aspects. Journaling. Journaling was something I used to do when I was single, but then you get into a family, and it's just one thing to the next.
Yeah.
But I love taking just 15 minutes, 10 minutes, just journaling, and it's like, and putting it in that space that is, that just let it out. So it
Yeah.
it it you know it, it doesn't take much to provide or to do self-care.
You're right. You know, it can be like pretty much free, right?
Yeah.
Being still is you don't that doesn't cost anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, if you're in the habit of buying journal books all the time, like just grab one and use it, you know?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so
Right.
it's like it's not rocket science, but I did
No.
find just like any other job that as a mom, I required days off and I
Hmm.
started going on retreats. You know, like I was up to 5 or 6 weeks off a year. I was
Yeah.
gone,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, because there's something to be said for giving yourself time and space. So, like, to what extent have you gone on retreats?
So I've done, and this is all recent. I've done, for the last past 2 years, I've done two retreats. Um, and in those retreats, they really did an awakening for me. Somehow within life, um, I was, I thought I was present, but I really wasn't present.
Yeah,
And then things start surfacing, and then you're like, wait a second, there is me, and why am I not tapping into this? Right.
yeah,
So retreats, I do agree with you, are a good way to really figure out, a way of self-care as well. um, and if that works for the person, great. If it doesn't, try something else. um, and then there's different types of retreats, right?
hmm.
So it depends on what type of retreat you do. So
I mean, like a type of free retreat. Like in a couple of weeks on June 3rd, I'm doing this 3-day experience called From Surviving to Savoring.
hmm,
Yeah, how to rewire your body for pleasure and emotional freedom. And so it's free, you know? And so over these 3 days, you'll get to, for an hour and a half, go on retreat. and see what it feels like to savor your life. So that's free,
Mhm.
right? And it's 3
Mhm.
days. You're really carving out like 90 minutes, 3 days in a row.
Mhm.
And then during COVID, I did like a weekend virtual retreat where it was
Mm.
several hours. That was paid though. I
Mhm.
collaborated with a woman in Australia, and that was like $1,000,
Mhm.
because it was over a couple of days. And then I did something similar with a woman here, right, in the DC area.
Okay.
And we had a hotel room and
Mm.
invited some people to come. But then there were also people on Zoom, and that was paid also. I think that
Okay.
was like $500, and it was hybrid. So there were some people in the room with us, and there were some people on Zoom with us.
Right.
Yeah. And so, but now I'm collaborating with the Love Camp, and we go to Bali. And
Mhm.
so I love volcanic islands.
Right.
Just the
I
energy.
saw the one you went to last year,
Yeah.
right?
In
Yeah.
December.
Yeah. I saw
Yeah.
some pics on that. Yeah. And I like it's I like that you presented and you mentioned all those different types of ways a retreat could look like, because most of the time, and please correct me if if the listening audience is hearing this, but someone like myself, if I hear the word retreat, I'm just like, okay, I have to travel somewhere, or it's at some destination. But
Yeah.
here you've definitely made it clear that it was done in multiple different environments in different ways.
Hmm.
We have,
It's
going,
accessible.
yeah, yeah, going to a destination. You went to, you even had a retreat at a hotel, you even had a hybrid, you had it online. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a matter of really carving out the time to really provide your needs. We have time to do everything, right? We carve out time to do work, we carve out time to you know um, pay our bills, but we just have to sometimes be a little selfish, and I will use that word again loosely. um,
Yeah.
and just say, okay, I'm carving the time for self-care. And you know I've literally, within the last 2 years, that's been a work in progress, and I'm really recognizing the importance of self-care and the importance of doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. It is so important. And, when we were talking prior to start recording, I was telling you, like, in my early years of raising my children, I would sometimes just close my eyes before I really knew what meditation was and really just um, like deeply think about and put myself back into that emotional feeling and state of being with my mom when she
Hmm.
was helping my sister with their babies,
Hmm. Hmm.
and like just to know what to do in a moment. It's like if
Right.
my mom were here,
Right.
so I felt myself on retreat hanging out with my mom, you know what I'm saying? So that's so that's like, I guess that's another definition of meditation, but it is also a
Yeah.
form of retreat, I would say, right? Because I was retreating within myself.
Right. 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 um for me, you mentioned a time like that. I remember when I was doing my master's and things would get really crazy, I would just literally book a flight for 3 days, go to Trinidad at my dad's place, and it's in the country. And I remember many times just sitting in the backyard looking at the trees and looking how they're moving in the wind, and just listening to the chickens, and just really being in nature and not recognizing that is what my body needs to just disconnect.
Yeah,
And I my so the body craves it too. And
it
I
does.
would just be like, okay, it's time to book that ticket. I would just leave.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that the body knows, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you listen to your body's
Yeah.
wisdom and
Yeah.
act.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is knowing your requirements, because it's like
Right.
that is like the optimal form of self-care is listening
Right.
to your body and
Right.
acting on that. Because how
Right.
many times do we not, right?
Right. Right. Um, you know, it's the body's always talking, right? It's up to it's up to you to listen, right? Whether it's, you're feeling pain somewhere, if there's
Mhm.
pain somewhere, it's saying, hey, something's wrong there.
Yeah,
It's up to you to really say, okay, you know what, this is consistent, something's wrong. So it's the same thing with the mind, the body, the mind. I knew I was stressed, but it was up to me to really take the initiative to make this next step, right?
mhm,
What was the requirements for my self-care? And I could have just ignored those signals and be like, continue in that trauma sense, right? Continue, just keep going, going, going. But instead, I remember very uh, one time I went home twice within a month, and it was the same. And my dad was like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I just need time to just watch the trees." And he's like, "But there are trees in America." And I'm like,
no,
"No,
not the same trees.
not the same
These
trees."
trees, they have information for me.
Yeah. And I would just literally book a flight and just leave, you
Yeah,
know. Um, and sometimes you have to leave your common area in order to get that space, and that's why sometimes people do retreats, because they're
yes,
leaving their common area, because whatever is there is not allowing them the space to really to be fully in a self-care mode.
yeah,
So that's why it's good to go on vacations and stuff like that, because you're getting out of that common place that might be causing you not to provide self-care to yourself. um, and it would be a beautiful thing to practice that on a daily basis. I mean, if you could really be in a space that you're providing self-care to yourself on a daily basis, I think you're a super person.
yes. Well, interestingly enough, we talked about this too before we started recording, but like once upon a time, it was just a way of being, you know.
Right.
It's in this 21st century life that we've created distance between us and our bodies and us and our bodies' wisdom
Right.
and passing that down as a form of education when you're raising your children
Right.
because we don't know anymore, right? And so, like, and it's funny, my mom said this, right? When I was a kid, I was so embarrassed because my parents were old. Like,
Hmm.
my dad was 61 when I was born, right?
Hmm.
And my
Hmm.
mom was 40. And so it's like, and they were born at the beginning of the 20th century,
Mm.
and their parents grew up in the 19th century.
Mm.
So I was raised with that knowledge, right? So it's not odd to me to be connected to my body. It's not
Mhm.
odd to me to
Mhm.
prioritize my self care because it wasn't even called self care because it was a way of being. That's how you
Mhm.
are as a human.
Right. 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 Right.
That's the funny thing. Like, oh,
Right.
self care, It's like, I mean, I can literally see my grandmother laughing at that. Like,
Mhm.
what does that mean?
Right.
Of course,
Right.
you, you know, take the time to exfoliate your skin, you
Right.
know, every 2 days. Of course, you take the time to moisturize your skin with these
Right.
things. Of course, you take the time to make the creams and the oils for your skin and,
Mhm.
for your hair. And of course, it's like beautifying the body
Mhm.
was just like what you do.
Mhm.
But now it's like a thing,
Right.
because we don't take time, you
Mhm.
know? And so we have to make space for ourselves, going to get
Absolutely.
nails done with your friend, right? Because maybe you wouldn't do that by yourself, but if you're with your friend, it's
Right.
okay, you
Right.
know?
Right. Absolutely. Um, I do agree with everything you've mentioned before. Um, and it's also funny that we have to put a label on it, right? Right. There goes the labels. It's like, um, It just should be something that is organically done, and it shouldn't have to be a to do, like a to do list, right? It should be just be like, okay, I'm doing what the body needs, the mind needs, and that be it's okay. It's natural. It's a natural phenomenon. Like, we do need to eat. That's natural. So um, but unfortunately, the way how things are within the fast pace of life and getting caught up, if you need to put time or dedicate time to do self-care, it's very important, very important, on a medical standpoint, on an emotional standpoint, on a physical standpoint. It's just so needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And so let's do talk about on the from the medical perspective. Like
Mhm.
how does it support you? Like what do doctors like to see when their patients come in?
In terms of self-care.
Well, like in terms of, yeah, self-care, right? Because like if you are I think your last point was about food, right? If
Yeah.
you are choosing the food that your body wants,
Yeah.
right? And the
Yeah.
body will tell you because sometimes it will ask for weird stuff like,
Yeah.
baking soda or something like this, right?
Yeah.
And and that even means like a mineral deficiency.
Absolutely.
So like, when someone comes in, like what's the blood work that we're looking for?
Um, Definitely when it comes to blood work, one of the things that I would definitely say is if you're doing your hemoglobin A1C, um, that's an indicator to let us know if you're diabetic or not. And that will give a lot of information in regards to, how your pancreas is working and stuff like that. And if needed to, um, change your diet, exercise, and stuff like that. Also, your your T3, your T4, your thyroid, um, blood work, just to know if your thyroid gland is working. Because, you know, um, how are you feeling in your body? Are you feeling, tired, fatigue, or overstimulated? These are, I would say, like if you want to look at blood work, like things that are coming right at me would be those two, I would say.
Hmm.
And then, I mean, just your doing your annual is really necessary as a person, just to make sure that you're doing the right things in terms of dietary intake, in terms of physical activity, um, because those are self-care things, right? If you don't eat right, your body is going to reflect that. If you don't keep yourself active and, exercising, or being, active, as I said, walking, your body will reflect that. And I think a lot of times right now in the healthcare system, it's just so easy for people to just say, you know what, um, you know, I'm too busy to do these things, right? I'm too busy to choose the appropriate diet, or I'm too busy to say I'm going to exercise 3 to 4 times a week, or keep active. Um, and, then we get sick.
Yeah.
And that's just the body reacting. Once again, you're not taking care of yourself. So you're going to have medical issues.
Yeah.
So it all comes into play. We really have to, once again, devote time. If you can't, if it's not coming organically,
Hmm.
and I would say I'm probably one of those people. It doesn't come organically all the time, so
Hmm.
I have to say, okay, I have to devote time to, exercise. I have to take time to making sure I'm doing my meal prep. I have to take time to do my centering practices, um, things like that, and just really, you know get a little selfish.
Yes. And that is a beautiful word,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, let's I used to modify it and say selfless, right?
Ah,
Or self-full. No,
self-full,
self-full, right?
self-full. Okay.
Right? But what's wrong with the word selfish except for the connotation, right? The
Right. The society
socialization
put on
around the
us.
word. Yeah. So it's a great word. It's very specific
Mhm.
and accurate. And we should use it the way it's intended. Yes, I am selfish.
Yeah, yeah.
And my children actually appreciate it. You know, my daughters are sometimes like, "Mom, you're being grumpy because you need some time alone. Why don't you
Mm,
go and, like, not be with us tonight?" Or something like this, you know?
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They understand the importance of it, you know?
great.
So
Yeah.
and the ones that live with me are my daughters, and, because so many women don't understand the importance of it, you know?
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So I love that you know, came on what people miss, and we got to talk about what
Yeah,
people miss about self-care and knowing your requirements. Like it's a thing to know your requirements.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that if you just really tap into it, once again, the mind and the body is going to talk and tell you what it wants, you know. And self-care could just mean self-love.
Mhm.
A lot of people are, you know, we may be thinking self-care is like doing something for yourself, but it could be as something as simple as just saying, you know what, I need to love me. Like, I need to know who I am,
Mhm.
or the person in the mirror. I want to love that person, you know. We make love to others, make love to yourself.
Yes. I know. And like because you have to know what that feels like first.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
to know where your sensations are in your body so you'll know like, oh, you know what? When I'm with my partner, I want them to touch there. You know?
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Like
That's
that.
self-care too.
Yeah, it sure is. Let's make it clear. Let's not forget the important one.
Yeah,
And before we go,
yeah. Pleasure.
let's talk about self-pleasure, right? Because that is the ultimate form of self-care, and that
Yeah,
is the ultimate conversation with your body.
yeah, yeah. And really just knowing, hey, okay, um, I need to focus on, okay, this particular part of my body is where I love the most, but this particular part is where I really love the most. So,
This one's even yummier.
that's all self-care.
Yes, it is. It really is,
Yeah,
and this is another determiner of like if you want to stay in a relationship, right?
right.
Is your partner willing to care for your pleasure?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's another podcast.
it is.
Yeah.
I digress. Let's stay on topic.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, this has really been lovely. I'm glad, right? Because like I cannot talk about what people miss about self-care and knowing your requirements
Mhm.
without the most obvious thing that people miss, which is the self-pleasure part,
Yeah.
you know, and the pleasure part. I think we covered the joy part, but we
Mhm.
didn't so much get into the pleasure part, you
No.
know. They're
Yeah.
not they're not intrinsically related, you know what I mean? It's
They're
like
not. Yeah.
uh one I don't know, I kind of think it's like a loop, right? Is it the joy comes before the pleasure or the pleasure before the joy?
It depends on who you speak with, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also depends on what it is, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, if your body's like, "I'm hungry for food," right?
Mhm.
And then now we're like, "Yippee, we're gonna eat," right? But then it's the pleasure that comes when you eat,
Eat.
right?
Yep.
Because you can smell it and you can taste it,
Mhm.
and there's, like, sensations with texture
Mhm.
and the smell tasting, as my kids call it,
Mhm.
while
Mhm.
you're
Right.
eating.
Yeah, and also the what it looks like,
Mhm. Oh.
because if it looks, good, then I definitely want it. And if
Yeah,
it doesn't look good, I'm like, no,
that's not for
it's
me.
not for me.
Yes, and listening sometimes. Let me see, like all the senses. Like, can you hear your food? Yeah, you can hear like if it crunches and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
for sure.
So, thank you so much, Apio.
You're welcome.
This was this was so much fun.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was lovely. So, for those of you who are viewing and listening and you've really benefited, share this with another heart, share this with another soul. Connect with Abio Noel at, oh my goodness, tell us your website again?
Oh, diagnosis to desire.
Yes, Diagnosis to Desire. And it is the number two. So it's diagnosis, the number two,
Hmm.
desires with an S.com.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Cordelia.
You're welcome.